to be able to be in a position to support is probably what gets me through it. And we have to support each other. That's a big thing in our company. Where you can barely get your work done, we still find the time to have our team meetings and group support and cherish the time and celebrate the victories. And as far as family, everything's new, right? Everything is new. It's like, how do you, after 9 months, 10 months, continue to coach your kids and how to thrive and succeed under new circumstances?
Hello, and welcome to Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between podcast. This podcast is about exploring the grief that occurs at different times in our lives, in which we have had major changes and transitions that literally shake us to the core and make us experience grief. I created this podcast for people to feel a little less hopeless and alone in their own grief process as they hear the stories of others who have had similar journeys. I'm Kendra Rinaldi, your host. Now, let's dive right into today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. In today's episode, you will hear a conversation that I had with Cory Bertisch, who is the My Gym Enterprises founding partner and chief executive officer. Cory has overseen all corporate operations, including sales, employee development, franchisee training, company direction, expansion, and product conception and advancements. Cory's background prior to establishing My Gym Enterprises includes extensive experience in the field of early childhood development, hands-on counselor training in child psychology, and 5 years as co-owner director of the thriving My Gym Van Nuys, California, from 1989 to 1994. Cory is a graduate of the University of California at Santa Barbara with a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology. Him and his wife, Trish, have 2 teenage children who are shining examples of the My Gym concept. Tune in and listen to this conversation I had with Cory regarding what My Gym Enterprises did in order to help the franchisees during this time of so many brick and mortar businesses having to close due to COVID restrictions. Take a listen. Welcome, Cory, to the podcast. Thank you for being here. I know you have a very busy schedule, so I'm so happy that you took the time to be on the podcast. Yay. Welcome.
It's certainly my pleasure. Anything for you.
Thank you. And for the listeners, and you might have heard that in my intro, Cory and I have known each other for a long time. He was my boss, and now my friend for I don't know, 20 years probably. We've known each other
Yes.
so a long time.
20 good
So,
years.
so our conversations are one of friends, but I'm gonna try to keep it as professional as I can, which that's hard for me, as you know. But Cory, thank you again. So Cory, I want to kind of take the listeners a little bit into learning about your journey into becoming the CEO of My Gym. Like, so how did it start off? And then we'll dive into how you have confronted all the different challenges that have come in the past, especially the past year. But let's start off with your journey. So, how did it start?
Yeah, my journey is definitely the American dream story. I was a normal person growing up in California, went to college, didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do when I graduated college, other than be a professional athlete, of course, which I could not. Um,
What do you mean? Aren't you're baseball, right? Is that what baseball was your sport? Yeah.
yeah, really any sport. The basketball, tennis became sports that I tried to go further in. But yeah, baseball, football, anything. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do as a psych major. I was studying doing hours at UCLA grad school to become a marriage and family counselor. Uh, a family opportunity. I was 23. A
Hmm.
family opportunity, a family connection connected us, my wife and I, to this small little indoor, what we saw as a baby play facility. At the time, there was Gymboree was similar to My Gym, and it
Hmm.
was My Gym, the small little business that turned out to be for sale, uh, founded by Yaakov and Susie Sherman and Bill Kaplan, had expanded to another mom and pop store. This is in the Valley of California, and it was just a business opportunity. I had worked with kids a little bit in high school and college, and I was an abnormal psych minor, which means that I worked with young kids with disabilities. Monique, who actually wasn't my wife yet, but turned out to be my wife, was awesome with people in general, but certainly kids. And we bought after going in and checking it out, we bought this My Gym, which is 3,000 square feet indoor play equipment that Jakob and Susie had designed and created this program that was so great. Somewhat unfamiliar to me, working with most of our kids in the gym are under 5, but we became really good at it. We were trained by the founders, and the American dream part comes in where we were so good at that job and creating other ingredients and other parts of the program that it in about a year that gym was completely full. Had somewhat accidentally stumbled upon a void in the market, something that parents and kids needed and loved, supplementary physical education, really, at a young age. Then it became evident that we should expand it. And about a year after purchasing this small business, we had 10, 20 of our friends seeing we were making pretty good money saying, I want to start one of these. We had 10 to 20 clients of the gym saying, whoa, how do you start one of these? And so the
It was
unintentional
the
effect,
thing to do. It was like the popular thing to do then, in that
yeah,
moment.
I felt
It
like
happened organically then. It happened very organically.
right. It's a good lesson to anybody that if you work hard and keep your head up for opportunity, and I don't think when we first purchased that business that it was going to be one of the world's greatest franchise
Mhm,
companies, with over 700 gyms worldwide in 30 countries. But and we didn't necessarily go to school for it. We didn't necessarily at the time have any specialized training about it. um, Being great with people, being great with kids, being invested emotionally and physically in our clients and our kids' families and their kids' children that came to our gym. They're uh, acclimating physical fitness and movement early so that the clients, the parents could see that it really had an impact as they grew. I mean, even grew from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or three to
mhm.
four. Um, but the American dream part again, Kendra, comes in where somewhat accidentally in the first year or two, we saw that we had many, many people that wanted to open a My Gym Children's Fitness Center. And so at that point, I was probably 25. I got really serious and said, okay, let's uh, let's go for this. Spent years developing the business documents, the legal documents, the curriculum documents with the founders, with Monique, with some very key, brilliant staff that we hired. Um, Slow grind in the beginning. For the first 5 years, we probably started 20 to 30 gyms. The way that another lesson learned here is, because the founders of this company, me, Monique, other people, were the experts in the service and the content,
Mhm,
experts in what we were franchising. That really paid dividends because we could go to the franchise that we started early, whether it was in Florida. I think one of the first ones was in Orlando, or Folsom. One of the first ones was in Folsom, or Ventura, San Diego. And keep in mind, these are started with friends and family and clients as franchisees.
Mm-hmm.
The gym you worked in 20 years ago was maybe our 35th gym in Pasadena, California.
Mm-hmm.
That, as you know, is my brother's gym.
Yes, and it was a training gym. We would train the franchisees that were interested in opening other gyms. That's where they'd come to train before they'd go and open their
Right,
own gyms. Yeah.
right. I think something we did really right is we just lived and breathed it for the first 15 years. A lot of
Mm,
sacrifice involved in that. Monique and I eventually got divorced a few years later, became very close friends and business partners. But people building empire like this, they need to live and breathe it, and you got to play the long game. You're gonna have little disappointments, two steps forward, one step back. But eventually, by the turn of the century, we had about 100 gyms. We had been in business for a good 10, 12 years at that point. We continued to professionalize all the systems and documents. I think a few years after that, we started our international development, professionalize everything more. Uh, as the tech boom started, we started to get technology involved in what we were doing. And today, you'll find everything online in our management system,
yes.
how
Which
to
is that Yeah, which is that's the part I want to kind of go into that part too on the pivoting and the keeping on evolving into what happened then this last year too, because that was a major then shift again into how you guys had to um I say this year. We're already in another year, but
right.
well, still it's still ongoing anyway because
So
a lot of
the
lockdowns are
slowest,
still in place.
the slowest and fastest year at the same time,
So
2020.
true. So true.
Right.
So if I may interrupt you then there, let's talk a little bit then about how, because of course, then that's 30 years. This is 30 years then of this company existing, 700 gyms internationally. Let's go into then what happened when the lockdown started to occur then last year, and did it start happening then in your some of the international markets first? Did you have to start addressing that first before then you started addressing what was happening in the US? Because
Right.
some of right. Okay, so can you take us into a little bit of that, and then I'm just also curious how even your background in psychology has had to play a huge part in even just you as CEO managing everybody's emotions even during this time of
Right.
chaos. So take us into that.
Yeah, it's definitely a major component of what I used, to help our franchisees and employees of my gym, survive and will eventually thrive. Just wanted to mention, as 2020 hit, we had become one of the best scaling companies in the world, uh, with systems widely recognized as that. Super high success rate with our franchisees, everything systematic, the best staff in the world, team members working in various divisions. So the focused work on creating what I like to call the best of both worlds company, the fully professional company and a family company. So you get it
Mhm.
all. And then 2020 hit, January. We have 400 plus gyms in China. Our China CEO of that business let us know that there was a novel virus, and they'd be shutting down all of their gyms in China by the end of January. And we read about it a little bit before that. We had dealt with H1N1, we had dealt with other uh, viruses and other things in the gym, as you have to be very sensitive to that in a gym.
Mhm.
There's, I think when James Liu is the CEO of China, I think when he told me that, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. We even had friends come in February from Hong Kong who had been in quarantine, and we were out to dinner with them. My current wife, Trish, and I were out to
Mhm.
dinner with the Liddells, and they said, "We're shut down. We're quarantined." And we still didn't fully understand. We're watching the
It's hard to
news.
grasp. Yeah,
We're
yeah,
like,
it's hard to grasp
we're like, this
that
is,
idea.
well, it's not that we didn't understand what was happening in China and Hong Kong. It's that we did not think it could happen to the United States. That's what we
Mm,
thought.
mhm,
And another month and a half went by, and we saw what was happening in Europe. And we started very early, maybe because we had deep connections to China in January, very early to create online curriculum, which even while we were doing that, we were saying to ourselves, gosh, I hope we don't have to use this. Um,
mm,
we were developing 15-minute segment classes. We instructed all the gyms to create one, and we'd use them as a big pool. So there'd be hundreds of little class segments. At some point during that time, we developed the concept of live. I believe we were the first company like ours to create it. I'm pretty sure that's the case, where we quickly made an online curriculum to for a teacher to be online, unheard of in our world. I mean, you can do it, teach fitness, you can do it, teach dance. How do you
mm,
teach 2-year-olds in a parent's lap where the equipment and the facility and personal contact is everything that we do? How do you do that online? Well, we
mm.
figured it out, whether it was use socks as balls at home or, the sufficient breaks, and figured out Zoom quickly. And when I say quickly, I'm talking over the course of 2 weeks with 20 unbelievable expert curriculum people. So again, we probably were the first company to do it because we had the
That was
resources to do it.
fast.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was fast
we
to
came
have
out
that
with
kind of programming. Yeah, in that short of amount of time to be able to pivot and do it in that manner. That is impressive.
yeah, and Kendra, Kendra was a teacher in a training gym and uh, traveled to open corporate gyms and then became a franchisee. So
There you go.
you
Say
you
I know the
know,
process well. I know the bounce and bounce and bounce. But yes, you're right
yeah,
in terms of the aspect of being able to connect with the kids, right? Because the reason that these parents go to these spaces with their children is not only for their children to have that experience, but even for themselves to connect with other parents. So not that to be able to translate that in an online platform, it's is hard is hard, right? Because it takes that the reasoning behind why a parent joins these classes is very different than why as adults we may join a fitness class. We may do it for a particular thing of getting in shape or whatever, but these type of classes are more than just the fact of your kid moving. It's about them developing what self-esteem, what was our motto, what is the motto, self-esteem and confidence and self-esteem, and then the parents also socializing. You have a lot
mhm.
of little reminders on your computer.
Sorry. Yeah,
I can't edit those. I can't edit those. It's okay. It's the life of a busy
right.
business now.
The 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 fact that we created an online substitute to our in-person classes uh, is would never happen during normal times. Would never happen when uh, we're not desperate, and we never thought it was going to be perfect. So you described, some of our more important uh, things that we're going for in our program, outcomes where you get socialization, parents meet friends, children are socializing and meeting friends for the first time, the interaction with an authority figure, a teacher, and we take that role
Mhm.
very seriously. It's a lot of our children's first time with dealing with the teacher, the interaction with the equipment. I mean, we knew it wasn't going to be perfect, but our live element that we switched all of our North American gyms over to uh, captured some of the uniqueness of our program, some of the specialness, because our teachers are so special. I mean, our program is basically it's based on teachers in the gym implementing, our philosophy and curriculum, and we were able to do some of that online, and that lasted, a couple months or 3 months or 4 months. Is if you lived in the United States, the virus up and down spread, then it recessed, and so the live, as gyms started to reemerge into their gyms, had different levels of success in different gyms. And by the way, extremely difficult to implement if you're a teacher.
Mm.
So, with all the challenges involved, that's what we did. We created a live element to My Gym that you could access online. We created an on-demand element. With those, we utilized our franchisees to create unbelievable, and those will live forever. 15-minute segments. Can you imagine, Kendra,
That's amazing.
creating a
That's awesome.
15-minute segment of highlights of what you did in the gym, and
Oh,
you could
wow.
just press a button. I mean, we talked about that as a business opportunity for many years, the on-demand element of it. Now we have that library. We uh, created this package where all of our clients, over 100,000 clients, and they're just in North America every week, and we created this package, loyalty package that no matter what you're getting with on demand and live and other forms of reaching the clients, personal days where if everybody was healthy, we'd go to their house with private sessions. You still got credits in the gym when you came back. We called it a loyalty
Mm.
package. So for a month and a half, 2 months, that was that was the plan. Everybody, was temporarily delayed unless they stayed in on live and got in our loyalty package. They get all the credit later in birthday parties or camps or any sort of program that we do, including our
Mm.
standard program. But as you know, this
Wow.
continued. Now we're in our 10th month. Is this our 10th
Yeah, I
month?
can't believe it. Well, right now as we're interviewing, yeah, it's January. We were just 2 months apart away from when it started here in the US.
Right.
That is just crazy. So then how then, because every state is very different here within the United States, right? So certain states then some of the classes are happening in person now as well with certain changes and things like that, depending on the
Well,
state's regulations or how is that going? How is that
yeah,
being handled?
we continue to show what makes our company great. We're the hardest workers, uh, the most creative team of curriculum people and support people and people that run our company. We care as much as any executive team and team of MGE people. Um, the only way to support hundreds of gyms and countries through a pandemic like this, where different states and different countries have different regulations, is by doing it individually. And it's a
Mm,
combination of overreaching, overarching rules and programs and curriculum combined with individual support of each owner of the gym. Again, something that probably wouldn't be attempted uh, in normal times. It is, yeah, well, we have, so many team members, so many support specialists, so many curriculum specialists. How are we going to create
the
all the
manpower,
curriculum,
right?
all the adapted programs, and support everybody to their individual situation and all the business contingencies with their lease and loans and government loans and local loans and insurance and discounts? How are we going to do it? We took it day by day, and we still are. We are just doing it, and we consistently look forward to a time and preaching. There'll be a time. I used to say a month from now. I used to say 2 months from now. I used to say, and now I say when it happens, the pent up demand for our program, the fact that we know that children are regressing to some level. Now, children are resilient. They'll recover. They'll
Yes.
be okay, but we know they're regressing. um, that when we are able to come back into the gym in full, and there's some gyms that are open to some capacity, we're going to explode. And every
Mm.
day for my team and our company and our team members is filled with little victories and a dose of reality and concern. And depression is too hard a word, but
Oh.
oh my gosh, yeah, every
Uh,
day you go through all those emotions, and yeah,
How do you protect yourself? Because that's one of the things is like not only are you having to handle all those emotions that happen just within your own family nucleus because you're a dad of two and in California kids are still virtual learners pretty much and at least in the LA area, right? So everybody is home. So your kids are home. Certain things, your wife's work and things like that. You're having to be okay with the emotional dynamics of just your family unit going through this. Yet you also have to then be um, in a balanced emotional state to run a whole company. So how do you do that? How, because this is like grief, grief on crack.
Right,
Like,
right,
like just
right,
taking it to this whole other level of because you're having to then every time you talk to a franchisee, all their hurts, all their pains, that no, my landlord doesn't want to forgive me from paying the
right.
lease this month, this or that, the how do you do it?
Yeah,
How? Yeah.
yeah. Well, first of all, there's something healing in supporting people, right?
Ooh, ooh, ooh. That is so powerful. Sorry, I need to write that down. Say it again and then continue.
There's something healing in supporting people. So our job as a company from day one, once we started to scale, open more gyms, whether they were corporate or franchise gyms, it's all about support. And people that give, um, you always ask them that question. I mean, the first responders to the crisis, the
Mm,
doctors and nurses in the hospitals, any typical person is like, how do you do that? How do you do that day after day? Well, the answer is there's something that you get back from it. So I think that's part of the equation is that we're constantly supporting. We have the best owners, the best My Gym owners, and team members of theirs that are just full of appreciation for what we're doing. So to be appreciated and while possibly losing your business, to be able to be in a position to support is probably what gets me through it. And we have to support each other. That's a big thing in our company. Where you can barely get your work done, we still find the time to have our team meetings and group support and cherish the time and celebrate the victories. And as far as family, everything's new, right? Everything is new. It's like, how do you, after 9 months, 10 months, continue to coach your kids and how to thrive and succeed under new circumstances? I'm a real believer in people are the only real healer. The only thing that can really help people is people. When you become addicted to substance, you go to group therapy. When you go to jail, the worst penalty is solitary confinement. The people are the only real, true, deep help for people.
mm,
Money doesn't create happiness. So in this time, my normal coaching for my 16, almost driving daughter, if you remember Evan, and Aiden, who's 17, would be call your friends, have friends over. Kendra, our house was like the house for
oh,
the
yeah.
parties
The
and
camp.
events and
No, and you have a camp, and yeah, and you also run a summer camp too for your kids in the summer for their own skills too. Like that's the place to be, right?
it
Pretty
is. I
much.
mean, it's ironic. My brother Jamie does it too for different fun, like sports, and my kids are actors and singers and dancers. So uh, I guess we grew up that way, where we had the neighborhood kids at our house, and during the summer we do a movie camp. The kids actually make a movie. They write a movie. They write the music, and we make a movie. But the point is, to your question, is all of that is not available anymore to create sanity.
Mm,
So it just all adapts. I think being quick thinking and clear and doing the things that you need to do, whether you are whatever position you're in. I might happen to be the CEO of a company, and I feel responsible for a lot of people in my family. But whoever you are, you have to stay healthy. I think that's physically is tied to mentally a lot. So you have to stay active and healthy. You have to try to sleep and try to eat. If my mom or wife ever listens to that, they'll laugh at me because, and
Mm.
you probably too, know I don't sleep very well, but I'll preach it. Um, that's part of it. And you just survive. You just, the human mind is making a decision to survive and eventually thrive or give up.
Mm.
And the human mind, the brain is very vulnerable, as there's a piece that just says it's too hard. And that can go for a pandemic where nothing's normal. That could go for a kid thinking about school. That could go as big as me thinking about scaling this all over the world. It could go for, you know, somebody to just go for a walk and start a workout. But the brain can get in the way. So you just have to make constant decisions to move forward and thrive. You also have to accept that there are going to be hard things and things where you fall back and draw back and just fight through those times to the better
Mm.
times and take it one day at a time.
Oh, so many. I'm like, I can't write fast enough to write all these tips because they're just life tips. We learned so much from all these different tests that happen, um and what you're saying too, with all these different tips that you're saying, not only for managing a company but just in life, as you said, even just as easy as a child, trying to get better in a sport or in their school and anything. um these are amazing because it's those same skills that you have to use in then running a corporation, is the same skills that we use just in our
Right.
day to day. Um, the other thing I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, would you say that some of your experiences with grief in your life, with other things that have happened in your life, the death of your brother's major, and we're not going to go into that for time being in this episode, but with your dad or your brother's major accident that left him in a wheelchair, would you say that those things um, have let me just ask, how have those played a role in making you more resilient in who you are now?
Right. Honestly, my older brother Randy was in a car accident where he became brain injured and bilaterally paralyzed, needing help the rest of his life. 35 years ago, my dad died of a horrible disease. I've had friends die. I've have had a lot of crises that feel horrible. But I'm definitely one to say that every human being has those crises by the time they've lived life enough. I am not one to say, oh, okay, that made me think that or that made me think that. On a certain level, Randy, our older brother, we created a foundation for him through My Gym. Franchisees are so generous donating to that. On some level, it makes you say, hey, appreciate every moment, right? And, other crises like my dad dying of a terrible disease, it makes you think, okay, let's have the time you spend with people be more meaningful. And maybe on some level, some of that stuff did have me, want to only have meaningful conversations and meaningful connections with people. But I, I think that everybody goes through it, and it's more a matter of your internal fortitude and your philosophy to just move forward, accept the bad, accept that there's going to be really, really hard stuff, and move forward. And in
Mhm.
conjunction with that, be as good a person as you can, affect as many people positively as you can, because all of that stuff is the groundwork for success. And in my case, it happens to be, scaling a children's fitness center. But in other cases, it's what you're doing with your podcast. In other cases, it's being, someone that gives back through charity, or someone that gives back through serving in government or in the health field. So I think there's deep commonalities toward taking stuff that happens in your life and placing it in a place that it doesn't stop you. That's what's
Mhm.
important. And to bring back something I said before, I do certainly feel up and down. This is where people come in to help. When the natural process, because some tragedy happens, is to isolate or if you're in a gym and not doing well, maybe you're embarrassed in a My Gym and you want to isolate. Actually, the thing to do is reach out to people and talk to people.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ah, I could keep talking as we know and keep on asking you questions, but I know you have another meeting and it's just been amazing. I got teary-eyed in this last part here. So amazing. Even though I've known you and heard some of these things, I've never heard it in this perspective and in this platform. So I'm
Mm,
so grateful. And not only to have you as a friend, but here to have you as a guest and for others to be able to get to hear all these nuggets, as I call them, of knowledge and wisdom and how we just keep going, like Dory says on in
right,
Finding Nemo, just keep going. We
right.
just keep going. So thank you so much, Cory.
Oh, you don't have to thank me ever, and it's super nice to have you as a close friend too, Kendra. So
Thank
we'll
you.
talk, we'll talk soon.
Thanks. Thank you again so much for choosing to listen today. I hope that you can take away a few nuggets from today's episode that can bring you comfort in your times of grief. If so, it would mean so much to me if you would rate and comment on this episode. And if you feel inspired in some way to share it with someone who may need to hear this, please do so. Also, if you or someone you know has a story of grief and gratitude that should be shared so that others can be inspired as well, please reach out to me. And thanks once again for tuning in to Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between podcast. Have a beautiful day.